Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to SK Educational Studies. Let us start the first chapter, The Lost Child, written by Mulkraj Anand. The lost child means the child that has been lost. Let us read the synopsis. A child goes to a fair with his parents. He is happy and excited and wants the sweets and toys displayed there. But his parents don't buy them for him. Why then does he refuse when someone else offers them to him? So, this is the story of a child who visits a fair with his parents. He is very happy and excited. In fact, he wants to purchase some sweets and toys that are displayed there in the fair, but his parents refuse to buy those for him. Then, why does he himself refuse when someone else offers these things to him? That's the story all about. It was a festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. So it was the festival of spring, when spring season as well as the season of festivities. From the wintry shades here it means that the trees that provide shades just like that of the winter season. Wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys. Alleys also means the streets or the lanes. Emerged a gaily clad humanity. Gaily clad humanity means the people who are emerging out of the narrow lanes and streets are really very gaily, means covered with gaily, means very cheerful, happy, as they are also going to the fair. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. Some are walking, some are riding on horses, others are sitting, and some others are being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. There we can see a small boy, a little boy who is walking between his father's legs, brimming over, means overflowing with life and laughter, means full of excitement. Come, child, come, called his parents as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. Lagged behind means left behind. As he was left behind, and the reason why he was left behind, because he was fascinated, means attracted by the toys which were being displayed in the fair shops. So his parents called to him to maintain equal pace with them. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. As soon as he heard his parents calling, he immediately obeyed to their call, means he immediately ran to them, but his eyes were still lingering, means focusing on the receding toys. Receding toys mean the toys that he was leaving behind him while walking with his parents. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart, even though he well knew the old cold stare of refusal in the eyes. So, excuse me. So when he came to where they had stopped and means waited for him, he could not suppress, means he could not control his desire. And though he knew that his desire would not be fulfilled, still he begged or pleaded, we can say. I want that toy, he pleaded. Means he begged, he requested his parents to purchase that toy. His father looked at him red-eyed, means angrily, in his familiar tyrant's way. Tyrant's way means strictly in angry manner. His father gave a look at him. His mother, melted by the free spirit of the day, was tender. Tender here means phrase. And giving him her finger to hold, said, "Look, child, what is before you." His mother wanted to distract his attraction towards the toy, and besides that, his mother was too very melted, means motivated, influenced by the freshness of that day. So, to motivate him, to distract his mind, his mother pointed out at a distance and told him to look. It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold as it swept across miles and miles of land. Swept across means move across, miles means stretch across miles and miles. So what was it? His mother pointed out. Excuse me. It was a flowering mustard field. which looked like melting gold. Why? Because the mustard flowers, which are yellow in color, so it looks like that of the gold. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. So, what could be seen there in the flowering mustard field? A group of dragonflies bustling means moving with noise, showing their gaudy purple wings. Gaudy means ornamental purple wings, intercepting the flight. They too were intercepted, means they too were disturbed or intervened when a lone black bee, means a single black bee or butterfly, came in search of sweetness, means nectar from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with his gaze till one of them would steal its wings and rest, and he would try to catch. As soon as the child saw, he too was very excited. He looked at and he went there and tried to catch one of those dragonflies who used to steal or rest at the flowers. But it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air when he had almost caught it in his hands. He was just trying to catch the dragonflies. Immediately it would go fluttering, means immediately it would fly from his hands. Then his mother gave a cautionary call. Come, child, come onto the footpath. After his mother was ensured that, completely sure that he was already distracted, then his mother would give a cautionary call, means a loud call of warning, demanding his attention to come to them. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while. Abreast of them means inside of them, means very close to them or by the side of them. Being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. Teeming out means rushing out or coming out in large numbers. So, as his mother called him, he immediately ran towards his parents, and he found next walking by the side of them. However, he soon left behind because he again got attracted by the little insects and worms which were coming out of their hiding places in large numbers to enjoy the sunshine. Come, child, come. His parents called from the shade of a grove. Grove means orchard of fruit trees, where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. Again, his parents would give him a call from the grove, means under the shade of a grove where they had found to be sitting on the edge of a well. As usual, he would immediately run towards them. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. So here we can see how the child gets distracted, means attracted, fascinated by seeing the various objects in the nature. So when he used to obey the call of his parents, means run towards them, what happened? The young flowers, the beautiful flowers, fell upon him as he entered the grove, means the orchard trees, and he immediately forgot his parents. He started collecting those raining petals. Raining petals means petals which had some drops of water. But lo, he had the queen of doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, the dove, the dove. The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. But as soon as he heard the queen of doves, he got scared and he dropped the raining petals that he had collected. Come, child, come, they called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they looked the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. Winding footpath means we can say the zigzag or the curved footpath. Capers means excitement, playful. So the child was so wild, means so crazy means crazy and playful, and he took a round the banyan tree, and then his parents called him, and he found to be walking with his parents through the mustard fields, through the zigzag path. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs, converging to the whirlpool of the fair, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. As they neared the village, means as they reached very close to the village, he could see many other footpaths full of throngs, means full of crowd, converging means extending to the fair, to the whirlpool of the fair, and he at once felt repelled and fascinated. Same means very excited, very attracted. Though he was, what is it? We can say confused by seeing at such a huge crowd, because probably this is for the first time he had been witnessing such a huge crowd. A sweet meat sell out. Gulab Jamun, Rasgulla, Barfi, Jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and a crowd praised round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many colored sweets decorated with leaves of silver and gold. So here he saw a sweetmeat seller who was selling or giving a call to attract the crowd. Gulab Jamun, Rasgulla, Barfi, Jalebi, and a lot of people have gathered around his counter, because he too was very excited by seeing the sweets, many colored sweets decorated with leaves of silver and gold. So here, food of an architecture we can say the man who used to decorate the sweets with leaves of silver and gold. The child stared up open-eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi that was his favorite sweet. I want that barfi, he slowly murmured. So murmured means he spoke to himself. When he saw the barfi, his mouth watered, means he got very, we can say, excited to have it, because barfi was his favorite sweet. But he half knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded, because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. But he very well knew that his plea means his appeal, or we can say his demand would not be heeded, means would not be listened, would not be heard, because his parents would say that he was greedy. So without waiting for any answer, he just walked on. A flower seller hawked a garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn. Irresistibly drawn means uncontrollably attracted. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaved, and half murmured, I want that garland. But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers, because they would say that they were cheap. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. Same thing here, when he saw the flower seller selling a garland of gulmohar, he was irresistibly drawn, means he was very much attracted, fascinated. He could not control his fascination. He murmured himself that he wanted the garland, but he knew that his parents would refuse to buy him by saying that these flowers are very cheap. So he, without waiting for any answer, he just simply walked up. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow of glory of the silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons, because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on farther. Then he saw a man stood holding a pole, means it was we can say a balloon seller, and he was really very means overwhelmingly desire, means such a desire which is really uncontrollable, and he wanted to possess them all means the different colored balloons, rainbow colored balloons. But here also he still knew that his parents would never buy him, because they would say that he was too old to play with such toys, means he has been grown up enough to play with such toys. So he moved on further, he moved ahead. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket. Its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer. But knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded further. Proceeded means moved on. Coarse music means which is very rough sound, and rippling we can say the flowing sound of the water. Next, he saw a snake charmer who was playing a flute, and that playing a flute to a snake which was coiled in a basket and just had raised its, we can say, neck, and it has been compared to that of a swan, neck of a swan. And he was attracted by the music, that was being played by the snake charmer. He went towards the snake charmer, but he again moved on, knowing that his parents would definitely forbid him, means refuse him to hear such rough music. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, mother. This time, the child could not control his desire, and he made a bold request, meant strong request, that he wanted to go on the roundabout. So he saw a roundabout in which was moving in full swing, and he was excited to see that how men, women, children, they were all shrieking and shouting and crying with dizzy laughter, means with full of excitement. So he looked at them intently, means seriously, and then he could not control his emotions. So he made a strong desire, strong request that he wanted to go on the roundabout. And this time he told his parents about this. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. But to his bad luck, his parents were not there. He turned and to look both the sides, means left and right. He looked behind, he looked front, but he could not find his parents. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk means sudden movement of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, mother and father. So he gave a loud cry, he started crying, and he moved from where he had been standing, and he cried in fear. Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Convulsed means trembled. Flushed face, actually, we can say earlier, his attracted face, his exciting face, immediately, converted, immediately changed into a fearful face. And tears were rolling down from his eyes. Obviously, because he was a small boy, so when he lost his parents, he started crying. Panic stricken, we can say frightened or scared, he ran to one side, then to other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. So he was panic stricken, he was scared, he was afraid. So he could not understand anything. He just ran from one side to other side, then hither and thither, means here and there, in all directions. But he did not find his parents. Mother, father, he wailed, means he cried. His yellow turban came untied, and his clothes became muddy. So his yellow turban that he had put on his head, it had been untied, and his clothes were muddy. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated. His cries suppressed into sobs. Finally, he stood defeated, means he stood helpless, hopeless, when he did not find his parents. And by the time his constant cries suppressed means we can say here controlled, or we can say that converted into sobs, means a low cry. A little at little distances on the green grass, he could see through his filmy eyes. Filmy eyes here it means watery eyes, the tearful eyes. Men and women talking. So at a distance, he saw that men and women were talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow cloths, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. So he looked at them very intently, very closely, to make sure or to find, with the hope that he could find his parents, he could find his father and mother. He looked intently, means very closely, at the patches of bright yellow cloths. It's because that as he had put on a yellow turban, so his parents had put on such yellow clothes. So he was trying to find out, but he only saw that men and women, they were laughing, talking, and he could not find his parents. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine. Shrine means a temple, or we can say a statue of god or goddess, to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering. Mother, father. He then ran quickly to a shrine, to a temple, sensing that he could probably find his parents there in that temple. But it was very crowded as well. It was very congested. A lot of people had been gathered there, and though he made his way through the people's legs, he started crying, mother and father. But I think he could not find his parents. Near the entrance of the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. Jostle means actually men were trying to push each other to make a way. And heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes, hefty shoulders means heavy shoulders. They were really actually, as it was very crowded, they're trying to jostle, they're trying to push each other. So they seemed to be really very angry while they were trying to make a way. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro their brutal movements, he might have been trampled underfoot, had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, father and mother. Poor boy, poor child, tried to thrust a way, tried to make a way between their feet. Whose feet? Those heavy men who were trying to push each other to make a way. So he knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. So he, anyhow, actually, what it was really very difficult for him to make a way through their brutal movements, mean the very congested movements of the heavy men. In fact, he might have been trampled underfoot. He might have been crossed. He might have been crossed under the feet of those men. Those we can say that those heavy men. If he had not shrieked, means if he had not shouted at the top of his voice, that father and mother loudly, he could have trampled, he could have crossed under the feet of this man. A man in the surging crowd means overflowing crowd, heard his cry and stooping with great difficulty, means bending and making his way with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. So, when that boy fell off, when he fell off on the ground, a man from the surging crowd, overflowing crowd, heard him his cry, and he bent with great difficulty and managed to save him, managed to lift him up in his arms. How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The man asked as he steered clear of the mass. Finally, it was the man who brought him out of there and saved his life, saved him from being trampled, from being crossed. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, I want my mother, I want my father. And this time he wept bitterly, means he wept seriously, and he only cried for his mother, for his father. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. Soothe him means comfort him by taking him to the roundabout. The roundabout that he had seen, and he could not control his emotions, desire, and he had made a bold request before he lost his parents. Will you have a ride on the horse? He gently asked as he has approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs. Shrill sobs means we can say rough sound, rough crying actually. He was crying deeply. He only shouted, I want my mother, I want my father. The man tried to comfort the child by telling him that whether he would go on for a horse riding. But he immediately started crying and shouting and said that he wanted his mother and father. The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. Swaying cobra means to the moving cobra. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded. Again, then the man took him to that snake charmer and he pleaded, he requested the child to listen to the music which was being played by the snake charmer to the swaying cobra. But the child shot his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitched strain. Strain means voice. Double pitched strain voice. I want my mother, I want my father. Again, here the same thing. when the man took him to the snake charmer and told him to listen the music played by the snake charmer, he just shut his ears, means closed his ears with his fingers and shouted at the top of his voice that he wanted his father, he wanted his mother. The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Quieten him means calm down him. Would you like a rainbow colored balloon? He persuasively asked. Persuasively means just to motivate, to distract. He knowingly asked the child whether he wanted the rainbow colored balloon. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, means cried, I want my mother, I want my father. Again he repeated the same thing. He just only wanted his mother, wanted his father. The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate. Bore him to the gate means took him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck? So next, the man took the child to the flower seller and asked him to have a garland to put round his neck. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated means repeated his sob, I want my mother, I want my father. Same reaction. The child did not pay any attention to the man. He simply repeated his crying, simply shouted that he wanted his father, he wanted his mother. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets. Disconsolate charge, here it means that uncontrollable crying. The child who was crying incessantly, means continuously, in order to console. He thought to pacify his cryings, his sobbings. Probably he thought that a gift of sweets could do so. So, thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. But here also the man failed to convince, to soothe, to comfort the child, to stop him from crying. This is what. So, what we learn from the story? That you see the child who was very excited and fascinated and wanted to have all those things when his parents were present. But as he knew that his parents would not fulfill his demands, he did not ask for these unless he became uncontrolled when he saw a roundabout and he made a bold request to have it. But the same thing, when the child lost his parents and was crying, all these things were offered by a stranger. But why did he then refuse to have those things which he eagerly, desperately wanted? The reason is that he loved his parents more than the things that he wanted. So this is what we learn from this story, that parents' love is the real love for the child. I hope you liked my explanation. If you like my video, please don't forget to give your feedbacks, comments, and next video I will discuss the question answers. Thank you. Have a